02:47 a.m. Aboard the 423-foot frigate Admiral Makarov, champagne flows as the Russian admiral and his officers celebrate. They are relaxed, confident, and utterly oblivious that just 5 miles away, under the cloak of darkness, Ukraine has been waiting for this one single moment of weakness. A 120-foot civilian fishing trawler drifts silently, its hold filled not with sardines, but with vengeance. Hidden beneath the deck, a Magura V5 sea drone, a maritime predator armed with 770 pounds of TNT, lies dormant. Beside it, a pack of 10 FPV kamikaze drones sits ready for launch. The final countdown has begun. 20 seconds, 19. This was the punchline to a joke Ukraine had been setting up for an entire month. After Ukraine had systematically dismantled Russia's Black Sea fleet, sending 24 ships from the flagship Moskva to the Tsar Kunikov to the bottom, the Russian Navy was a shadow of its former self, cowering in the impenetrable fortress of Sevastopol. The Admiral Makarov was their new star, a symbol that they still mattered. For 30 days, using US satellite intelligence and their own Lalika 100 reconnaissance drones, Ukraine watched. They tracked the Admiral's routines, noted his arrogance, and waited for the perfect moment of hubris. This entire operation was a custom-built trap, a Trojan Fish designed for one man on one night. This, however, was a suicide mission on paper. The Admiral Makarov wasn't alone. It was protected by a shield of missiles and cannons from its onboard Panzer S-1 system, a powerful sonar system that could detect a submarine from 6 to 9 miles away, a bodyguard of 6 patrol ships, and a Ka-27 Helix helicopter circling overhead like a guardian angel. So how does a single fishing boat, 1 sea drone, and 10 small FPVs break through that wall of death? The answer is what happened next. At 02:40 a.m., the opening move begins with a lie. The 120-foot fishing trawler glides across the water, its composite hull giving it a naturally low radar signature. On any Russian radar screen that might happen to see it, its AIS transponder calmly identifies it as the MV Altan, a friendly Turkish fishing vessel on a routine journey. It's the digital equivalent of wearing a fake delivery driver's uniform to walk right past security. But as the trawler crosses the critical 5-mile line from the Sevastopol harbor, it stops pretending to be a fish boat. A switch is flipped, and a powerful military-grade Bukovel AD jamming system hidden on board screams to life. It blankets the coastline in a 10-mile bubble of targeted X-band interference. For the powerful Nebo M radars guarding the port, it's like a sudden blinding flashbang. The security cameras are now off. And in that moment of engineered blindness, the belly of the beast opens. A hatch slides open and a Magura V5 sea drone slips into the dark water, accelerating to its top speed of 43 knots. A silent shark now hunting a battleship. Seconds later, 10 FPV drones launch vertically into the air, their small electric motors barely making a sound as they climb to 5,000 feet. The party crashers have arrived. The trawler's job is done, but the most dangerous part of the mission has just begun. The jamming has started a clock. A sea drone and a swarm of 10 FPVs are now racing towards the most heavily defended port on the Black Sea. The Russians are blind, but they're not deaf. The question is, will they hear the attack coming before it's too late? At 02:42 a.m., the Russians wake up. The jamming bubble wasn't a perfect cloak of invisibility. It was an electronic smokescreen. And through that smoke, a skilled Russian operator on the Admiral Makarov spots something. At 5,000 feet, the FPV drones have briefly poked their heads above the main jamming cone. The radar return is minuscule, a cross-section of just 0.05 square meters, the digital equivalent of trying to spot a seagull in a hurricane. But it's enough. His screen flashes red. The ship's own Panzer S-1 defense system, acting on instinct, spits fire. 2 missiles tear through the night. 2 of the 10 FPV drones disintegrate in a flash of tungsten and fire. On the Makarov's bridge, there's a sigh of relief. They believe they've just swatted a minor nuisance, but they have just made a fatal miscalculation. They think they're dealing with a few annoying drones. They have no idea there is a 770-pound shark swimming right under their keel. However, the attack has consequences. An alarm blares across the Sevastopol command net. The Russians now know something is out there. A Ka-27 Helix helicopter lifts off the Makarov's deck, its powerful sensors beginning to sweep the dark water, hunting for the source of the attack. the mysterious fishing trawler that has suddenly gone silent. The element of surprise is gone. The playing field has changed. The remaining 8 FPV drones and, more importantly, the Magura V5 are now being actively hunted from the air. The clock is ticking, and the hunter has just become the hunted. At 02:44 a.m., the game had changed. The K-27 helicopter was now a bloodhound in the sky, its powerful sensors methodically searching for the Ukrainian drones. The problem was, Ukraine had anticipated this exact move, and they had prepared a masterpiece of electronic deception. So Ukraine changed the rules of the game. On board the fishing trawler, the operator flips another switch. This one activates the ghost signal, a highly sophisticated piece of AI-powered electronic warfare. It doesn't just create noise, it creates a perfect digital mirage. It begins broadcasting the exact electronic signature of a 505-foot US Navy Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. It was the electronic equivalent of faking a 911 call to report a bank robbery on the other side of town just to lure the police away from your real target. On Russian command screens, a new massive contact appears 20 miles out to sea. Panic erupts. An American warship appearing unannounced off the coast of Sevastopol is an existential threat. They cannot ignore it. The K-27 helicopter is immediately diverted, sent on a wild goose chase after a phantom. They even scramble a long-range Orion drone to investigate the ghost. But while the Russians were distracted chasing a ghost, the Ukrainians landed a real punch. With the helicopter gone, 4 of the remaining 8 FPV drones break away from the main pack. Their target? The Panzer S-1 radar tower on the Admiral Makarov itself. They don't crash into it. They fly over and drop their 6-pound MAML munitions directly onto the antenna array. The explosions aren't big enough to destroy the system, but they don't have to be. The shrapnel shreds the sensitive electronics. The goal wasn't destruction, it was blinding. The Russians are now fully engaged, hunting what they believe is an American warship. But in the process, they have been lured away, and their primary weapon for close-in defense has just been crippled. They were now fighting a ghost. And the real monster, the Magura V5, was still closing in, completely unnoticed. At 02:45 a.m., just when the Ukrainians thought they had outsmarted the Russians, a UCNI in the sky intervened. Circling at 30,000 feet, the Russian Beriev A-50 AWACS wasn't fooled by the electronic ghosts. Its powerful sensors weren't looking for radar signatures. They were looking for heat. And the small electric motors of the 8 remaining FPV drones, though quiet, were glowing hot against the cold night air. The AWACS instantly relayed the drone's true coordinates to another escort ship in the flotilla, one whose Panzer system was still fully operational. A missile screams off the rails. This is where the plan nearly came to a catastrophic end. The missile's primary target was the FPV drones flying a few hundred feet above the water. Its proximity fuse, however, was designed to detonate and shred anything within a wide radius. Directly below the FPVs, swimming silently in the darkness, was the Magura V5. A successful interception of the drones would create a storm of shrapnel that would tear the sea drone apart, ending the mission instantly. 155 miles away, a single Ukrainian operator's blood ran cold as a red icon flashed on his screen. Missile launch detected. His connection to the drone was a fragile thread of data beamed through a Starlink satellite. He had less than 10 seconds to save the entire 1-month operation from total failure. His thumb jams the controls forward. A single command is sent across hundreds of miles via satellite. Dive! The Magura's nose pitches down, its motor screaming as it plunges into the crushing depths of the Black Sea. The missile screamed overhead, its proximity fuse searching for a target in the empty air just above the waves. One wrong move, 1 second of lag, and the party was over. At 02:46 a.m., the Panzer missile had missed, but its radar was already sweeping the sky, hungry for another target. It would reacquire the drones in seconds. The Ukrainian operator had a choice: retreat or go all in. He went all in. 2 of the remaining 8 FPV drones were given a final one-way command: attack the radar. They peeled away from the pack, becoming twin angels of death on a suicide run, diving directly at the escort ship that had just fired on them. The effect was instantaneous. The Panzer's automated defense system went into a panic, its turrets swiveling frantically to track the immediate head-on threat. For 5 critical seconds, its entire processing power was dedicated to swatting these 2 kamikazes from the sky. And that was the opening. In that 5-second window of manufactured chaos, the Magura V5 breached the surface like a true sea monster, its engine screaming as it entered its terminal sprint toward the Admiral Makarov. Simultaneously, the last 6 FPV drones dropped from the sky, their new targets painted on the exposed sailors on the Makarov's deck and the ship's bridge. The Panzer's cannons erupted, tearing the 2 sacrificial drones to pieces just yards from the ship, but it was too late. Their 5-second sacrifice had bought a lifetime. Every Russian defense was now either crippled, distracted, or focused on the wrong target. The path to the Admiral Makarov was now wide open. At 02:47 a.m., aboard the Admiral Makarov, the Admiral finally raises his glass. Za Zdorovya, to health. At that exact second, the Magura V5 hits. It doesn't explode on the surface. The 770-pound warhead, shaped for penetration, punches through 2 feet of naval steel, burying itself deep inside the ship, directly in the bay housing the Kaliber cruise missiles. Simultaneously, the last 6 FPV drones descend like vultures. 2 slam into the bridge, shattering the windows. The other 4 detonate across the deck, turning a champagne party into a scene of chaos and shrapnel. The last thing the Admiral saw wasn't the bottom of his glass, but a flash of white light from below. Miles away, its mission complete, the MV Altan fishing trawler deactivates its jamming systems, reactivates its legitimate Turkish AIS signal, and sails quietly back into the darkness, its hold now empty. But the destruction wasn't just about the initial impact, it was about the 0.8 seconds that came next. The Magura's fuse was deliberately delayed. This tiny pause allowed the warhead to travel deep inside the hull before detonating. It wasn't designed to make a hole, it was designed to create a pressure chamber. When the 770 pounds of TNT finally ignited, the resulting 10,000 psi pressure wave had nowhere to go. It didn't just rupture the Kaliber missile bay, it crushed it. And this is where the physics gets truly brutal. The shockwave from the Magura's blast becomes the trigger for a sympathetic detonation. 8 Kaliber cruise missiles, $15 million worth of advanced weaponry ignite in a devastating chain reaction. The ship's own weapons become its executioner. The force of the secondary explosion rips upwards, shattering the ship's spine. The main radar tower, already damaged, snaps like a toothpick. The ship's power grid, its electronic nervous system, was severed. The lights flickered and died. The Admiral Makarov was now a deaf, blind, and burning hulk. But the sinking of the Makarov wasn't just the loss of a ship, it was a strategic decapitation. With its flagship and command center at the bottom of the sea, the Black Sea Fleet was effectively blind and leaderless for the next 48 hours. The dreaded Kaliber missile launches against Ukrainian cities stopped. The paralysis rippled ashore, where Russian artillery batteries waited for naval fire support that never came, allowing Ukraine to press its advantage on 5 separate fronts. This single, humiliating blow triggered a strategic retreat as the remnants of the fleet, now less than 20 major vessels, began a marathon run to the relative safety of Novorossiysk. The attack on the Makarov didn't just sink a ship, it brought the total number of Russian naval vessels damaged or destroyed to 25. And so, with 1 fishing trawler, 1 sea drone, and 10 FPV-Bs, Ukraine delivered a masterclass. They proved that in modern warfare, you don't need the biggest ship, you just need the smartest trap. The lesson from that night is simple. Never throw a party when your enemy owns a fishing boat, because they will turn your celebration into a funeral pyre.